Okay, so I want to give you some tips as well as the folks who didn't raise their hand. I'm going to show you a new way to test your code using AI. All right? Okay. How many of you would store your credit card information on this screen? Raise your hand. None of you. Why not? You see a bug? He said there's a bug on the screen. Okay. Why else?
Any error just makes me unsure about the rest of their system.
Any error makes you unsure about the rest of your system. Now, this is not a mom and pop shop. This is Cineworld. Cineworld is the second largest cinema chain in the world. And on this page, where they're asking you if you want to store your credit card information, they have this ugly bug here, right? Now, if you were filing this bug in JIRA or whatever, you might open this at a lower severity because it's just a label mismatch. But as you all said, no one would store their credit card information here. So the conversion rate is very low, I imagine. Someone even tweeted about them. That's bad. When your company gets tweeted about it and people put you on blast, it's not a good look. Now, I have a theory. I think they did test their code. Like I said, this is a big company. But I think what it is that they automated the test. When you automate your test using traditional tools, what are you all using? The folks that say you test your code, what tools are you using? Espresso, Selenium, Test Cafe, Karma, Puppeteer. No Cypress, folks? Cypress? Okay, all right. All of those tools, what they do is look in the DOM, so under your app, to see if things are present. If you had an automated test for this, yes, the labels are present in the DOM. The radio buttons are present in the DOM. Technically, this is functional, but none of us would use this, right? Open Table. How many people use Open Table? All right. So a little bit of my country slang comes from living in North Carolina. I lived there for 13 years. And they are famous for barbecue. So I went back to visit, and I wanted to meet up with some of my friends. So I went to Open Table to make a reservation at my favorite barbecue place. Open Table told me the time slots available for my party of 7. I went to click on it, and this popped up. This modal popped up. Now, I didn't really know what to do with this initially because there's nothing in the center. Now, as I looked a little closer, I noticed those select buttons over there in the corner. There's 2 of them. Why? They're not aligned, and I don't even know what I'm selecting. So I did what any of you would do. I opened Chrome DevTools, right? And I started digging around the DOM. When I did that, I noticed that the labels actually were present. They were just as far away from the buttons as possible. Now, I really wanted this barbecue, so I made the reservation. But most people are not engineers. They don't know a thing about Chrome DevTools. They're not digging in your DOM trying to figure out how to work your application. Imagine me closing out of this. And as millennials, you know we don't use the phone. We're not calling nobody for a reservation, right? So this is business loss. And it's a party of 7. We haven't seen each other in years. We're going to drink. We're going to order appetizers and meals. And we're going to spend a lot of money. So this is a lot of business they could be losing. Again, if this test was automated, it's going to pass. The buttons are there. The DOM, using a DOM, you can figure out how to use this. But as a human being, you cannot. This is my favorite one. This is Instagram. What makes this my favorite one is this is sponsored content, meaning someone paid to have their ads show up on Instagram, and this is what they gave them. I don't know about you, but I want a refund, right? So they need to refund this money. Again, with the test, is this text present? Yes. Is this text present? Yeah. So you're checking for all of this text, and now it's deployed, right? So what we need is something to check on the surface to make sure our app actually looks like what we want it to do. And that's where this AI visual testing comes in, right? So visual testing is basically where you take a picture of your application when it's in the state that you want it to be in. And then you take another picture every time that test runs as part of the build, right? New picture compares the two pictures. If they're different, it lets you know. Now, I know what some of you thinking, I can see it on your face. That might be a little flaky. My app might change, da-da-da. Now, there used to be a different technique, pixel to pixel. Some of the companies are still using pixel to pixel. That's very flaky because it catches every little thing. Things like cursors that are blinking, if it happens to be solid in one picture and not in the other, that fails, right? So this AI-driven technique is much better. All right, let's get into it. We're going to add some tests to existing code base. All right, this is the application we're going to test. It's a single-page app I put together. It's 8 of my favorite books on testing. And you can filter these books by, like, the title. For example, if I put in the word test, I see all the books that have test in it. And, if I put in the exact word, then I see the one book with that. So those are the two tests that we have coded already. I want you to take a look at this. We're going to do... Let's run this one test here. So this one is saying, okay, I want to look for agile testing. I want to make sure that that's the only book that's visible. And then I want to make sure there's only one book there, right? Okay, that's the test. Now let's just go ahead and run this test, make sure that it works. All right, so we run the test and boom, it works. We're good. Now, I want to show you something else. I'm going to go into the application because let's say I just took a little CSS animation course and I want to add a little flair to my app. So I'm going to say, go ahead and add this little code here. And I want to add like a little bouncy effect, right? So I add this, and then let's look at the app. Now, I'm looking at this app just to show you, but you know how we are. If I already have tests, I don't look at the app. I just go ahead and commit it, right? But you see, with a single line of code, I have literally flipped this app on its head. But I got tests, right? I got tests. So I'm just going to run my test. And it should go ahead and catch that, right? And no, the test has passed, even though the app is flipped upside down, right? Well, why is this test passed? Well, it said, search for agile testing. Is the book there? True. Is the title agile testing? Yep. Is it the only book shown? Yes. So you see how you're missing big bugs, right? This costs lots of money. I had more examples. Mackie wouldn't let me show you the slides, though. All right? Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's first fix this bug, and then we're going to add the visual piece in there to see how we can catch these types of things. So I can add the visual test right here in this test, but I want to add it at a higher level so that I can reuse it across all of my tests. So I'm going to go in the class that I'm inherited from. The API that does the visual testing is called eyes. Perfect name. All right? Now, after we launch the application, I'm going to go ahead and initialize eyes. And eyes is made by Applet Tools. There is a free account. Everything I'm showing you today is in the free account, okay? When you sign up for that free account, you get an API key. If you're looking in the GitHub, I have that line of code there for you, but I have mine stored as an environment variable, so I don't need to add that. All right, now I'm going to show you the magic. So let's go ahead and add a little method here. We'll call this validate window. And the first command, there's 3 commands. The first command is to open your eyes. So beautiful, right? So when you open your eyes, you give it your driver. In this case, I'm using Selenium and driver. Eyes works with whatever programming language you're using, whatever test automation framework you're using. These are my favorites, so that's what I use. All right, so automation bookstore is the name of the application, and then you give it the test name. Now I'm gonna hack this a little bit. Since I'm putting it at a higher level, I don't know what the test name is gonna be. It's whichever test calls me. So I'm gonna hack this a bit. Go ahead, close your eyes so you don't judge me. So I'm gonna say basically get whoever called me, get their name and pass that on, all right? So we open our eyes, and then we do the visual check. So we say eyes.check window. That's the magic that's going to take the picture. And then finally, close your eyes. We're done. Right? So I'm just going to make a call to this from here, my test. Now, when I make a call to validate window, again, it's taking a picture. So in that picture, the entire book's going to be there. It's more coverage than I already had. Because before, I was only making sure the title was right. The author could have been wrong. The price could have been wrong. We saw it was upside down. The thumbnail could have been wrong or missing, and all of that would have been missed by my test. So now I'm getting more coverage, and I can actually delete some of these assertions, right? So making sure that there's only one book visible, the picture's going to do that. I don't need that. Making sure that it's this book that's visible, I don't need that. So now I'm deleting code, which is beautiful. I love to delete code more than I love to write code. All right, less things for me to maintain. So I'm not reusing this. It doesn't need to be a variable anymore. So now my test is down to 2 lines. Take the action, do the visual check. All right, so let's make sure our app is back in a pretty state. Yes, and yes. All right, so we'll go ahead and run it. Now, what this is doing, it's going to take a picture of this application. It sends it out to Amplitude's server. So these images are not stored on my computer, thank goodness. They're stored in the Amplitude's cloud. Now, if you have, you work for like financial institute, health institute, something like that, where you don't want your stuff in the cloud, you then would need to upgrade and get one of the paid accounts. But for free, they'll store the stuff for you, all right? So we have our picture there. I'm really done. I'm going to take this step to show you where it's stored just because I want you to see, but I don't have to take this step. So don't think that I had to do this part. All right, so this is the dashboard. Amplitude's dashboard is storing like all of my tests here. And I see here that I have a new test called Search by Full Title. And the label here is new because it's the first time it was run. And then when I open this up, it shows me this image. Now, if I had another one to compare it, it would show both. But this is what the image looks like. Great, looks perfect. I don't need to do anything, right? All right, let's flip that app again and see if it can catch the bug. So we're going to run this again. Now, this time, same thing, taking the picture, sending it to the cloud, but now it's comparing that with the image that it already has. So that other image is called a baseline. Notice the test has failed this time. Let's go and see why. So we refresh this. Okay, here we go. We refresh this, and it's marked as unresolved. I like that, versus failed. Like I said, this is AI driving this. I don't need AI to take my job. I need AI to say, hey, human overlord, you are smarter than me. Here, I think I may have found something, but you, come use your infinite wisdom, right? All right, so here is the picture. And you can see this one is the baseline when the app was beautiful, and this is when I messed it up. And it found, oh no, you messed your app up. So it's finding things that I couldn't find with my traditional tools. Now I can say, yes, AI, you were absolutely correct. This is wrong. All I need to do is thumbs down this. And now the test is failed. All right? Let's talk about this, though. Y'all give me, what's some pros and cons of using such an approach? Start with the pros. You got a pro?
So this is a con.
Oh, Lord.
Start with a pro?
Yeah, start with a pro.
So the pros of using something like this is that you go through a lot of the static pages that a manual test would have to print, and it would take
take care of all of that for you, right? If the page hasn't changed and the functionality hasn't changed, don't worry about it.
All right.
But on pages where, like the one that you're demonstrating,
Yes.
there is variable data, it is now almost always going to give you I'm not sure about this.
What's the variable data?
The book results.
Okay.
And so I'm under the impression that there will be more books eventually.
So, okay, that's fair. Now, this is static test data, right? So, controlling my environment, I know what's going to be there. But to your point, let's say I want to add some more books to this, right? This book, this actual book, has a part 2 and like a condensed version that has come out since I made this, right? So let's say I want to add those to that. You're absolutely correct. Now, the test is going to have to be different, right? But I want to make this argument to you. If I were not to use visual testing, and I just coded it like we had before visual testing, I still would need to update that test because I had the assertion to say I'm only expecting 1 book back, right? So now 3 are coming back. I still would have to update it, right?
100%.
Yeah. All right, give me some more cons.
Oh.
Or pros, whatever y'all got. Someone up here.
You got another hop to check before you know if your test passed or failed. So like you got to go in and actually check instead of getting a report that says that it failed.
Right. Okay, so you got that your test failed, but now you need to go look at why it failed or if it's a real failure, right? That's fair too. I still have to do that same stuff without visual testing. Like when my bill fails, I have to go look at the test and figure out what's wrong. I would argue that in this case, at least I have a picture that's showing me exactly what's wrong versus me like digging through log files and stuff. But you're right. Right behind you.
You demonstrated it, but I just wanted to call out that specifically it reduces how many assertions I have to make. So instead of asserting like 1 book, this specific book, the picture knows it can compare the pixels and sees that it's that specific book that showed up.
Right, that's a pro?
I would say yeah.
Okay. Behind you, 2 people. 3 people.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. First,
right.
Does this check Internet Explorer 11 or Edge?
Yeah.
All right, good.
Yeah, works with IE, Edge, Firefox, Chrome, Safari.
And my other question, I noticed that you had ICE declared as protected rather than public or private. Why is that?
I did protect it in this case because it's in a super class, and I want my test class to be able to access it if they need to.
Right, cool.
All right. Lady right here.
Hi, I have a question. How does the testing work with responsive designs if it's comparing pixel by pixel?
It's not comparing pixel by pixel. If you
Okay.
see one, so this tool is my favorite, but disclaimer, I work for this vendor, right? But it was my favorite before I worked for this vendor. This is why I work for this vendor. There are other tools, and I didn't come here to bash. She asked me, so don't say I came bashing people. But there are other tools that are not using AI. They use pixel to pixel. It's very flaky, so I wouldn't recommend using those. Now, some of them, they'll add additional features that allow you to do like thresholds and stuff. So if it's off by this much percentage, it'll still pass. So there is that. But in general, they're flaky. Y'all know what I mean by flaky? Let me take one more question. I got to show y'all some more examples. I'm missing a con I'm looking for. Go ahead.
So is one con that you have to run it once to instantiate it? Like instantiate all the tests to see what's passing and what's failing?
That's fair. Yeah, you have to run it like that first time to get the baseline. But I always run my tests like one time just to make sure it works before I commit it anyway. So kind of.
And then also you have to, when you run the test in IntelliJ, you have to go to the website to check if it actually passes or not?
So if the test passed, like that first time we ran it, it passed, right? I didn't have to go to the website. But the second time when it was unresolved, they gave me in the console here a link, right? So this says this found exception, and then it gave me a link to that dashboard so I could see what's wrong. So yes, I would need to go to the dashboard to look at it. On that eyes.close call we made, it returns something to you. So with that object, you can do like some things there, but to be able to like actually look at what happened, yes, go to the dashboard. All right, one more.
So when you run it, it doesn't show exactly where the problem is. Like you have to look for it going to the two screens.
So, like, okay, it's this whole page, right? So it's like literally highlighting, like this is what's wrong with this pink, right? So I think I could say turn these diffs off. So I could turn it off. This is what it would have looked like if it was correct. And so it highlighted in pink. There's also this root cause analysis feature. So I could like click on any of these things, and now I get what changed in my CSS or my DOM that lets me know exactly why it highlighted that. All right. Now the con I was looking for that you all didn't give me is this is taking a picture of the entire page. That's a pro and a con. The pro is that it gets rid of what I call unintentional blindness. That's why all of those scripts without visual testing, the examples I showed you, the Instagram and the open table, that's why those fail, because the script it kind of has this blindness. It only is going to look for exactly what you tell it to look for, and that's within the DOM, right? So if anything else is wrong, it's not going to catch that. This catches that, but also it's like capturing everything. So for example, if there was some development going on this page in another area, all of that would be captured too, right? I don't really care about the title of this page, but that's being validated in this sense. I don't really care about this search bar or whatever, but that's being validated. So I can even scope my checks down to specific areas of the page. So instead of saying check this whole page, now I'm going to change that test to only check that book that we asked about. All right. So let me go back to the base test, and we're just going to copy this and change it to check for a specific element. So instead of validate window, I'm going to call this validate element. And instead of calling the check window, I can call check element. Now with that, you give it the locator of the element you want to check. So we'll say, okay, if you call us, you need to give us the locator of the element you want us to check for. All right, so let's go in here, change our test. Instead of saying validate window, we're now going to say validate element, and we need to give it the locator, which I already have stored here. So I'm going to say get this book and get its locator. All right, and I think I need to fix this app again, right? Yep. So let's get rid of that. And now let's run this. Show of hands, how many people think that this test is going to pass? Hurry up before it ends. How many think it's going to fail? How many of you just on the edge of your seat waiting? All right. This test has failed. Let's go see why. So we go to our dashboard, and okay, my internet a little delayed. Confirm. All right, so we go to the dashboard. Now, when we first wrote this test, we said check the entire window. And then when we ran it again, we said check the book. So, of course, the images are going to change, right? And this is going to happen sometimes. As we change our test, we have to change the baseline. So how do we do that? It's as simple as just a thumbs up. Save it, and now this is the new baseline, that small book, right? So changing the test is pretty simple. I would argue simpler than if I had like a JUnit assertion or something. Pros and cons of scoped.
So
assuming that this was the same scope all the way through. Now you have to think about every element that's on that page or every changeable element on that page. And then when you pass it off to QA, as long as the baseline appears to be the same, they may not notice any differences. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
Do you
So
want-
you're saying like if the baseline changed, but then they look at it and think it was intentional, they might go ahead and pass it?
Exactly.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Oh. I think that's it. Anybody else? Over here in the corner.
Originally, you were making assertions on like how many elements showed up.
Right.
Now you're just looking at this one individual element.
Wow. That is so good.
Thank you.
That is good because nobody has guessed that. When I asked for pros and cons, nobody's ever said that. And you're absolutely right. That's the exact one that I'm looking for, right? So what's happening here is we told eyes, find that book and make sure it looks beautiful. Okay, it's done its job. It's done exactly what I told it to do. Now, what if I put agile testing in the search bar, but filter was totally broken, meaning none of the books went away. All 8 were still there. Would the test pass or fail? Pass. It would pass because we told eyes to find that one book and make sure it's beautiful. Oh, yeah, it's beautiful. And it missed the fact that everything else is still there, right? So, again, with the AI will do what we're like telling and training it to do, but we're still the engineers. We're still smarter, right? So you have to think about how you're utilizing this. Don't just let AI run your show. So I said, look for that book, make sure it's beautiful, but I have to consider what else do I need to put inside my code because I'm reintroducing the unintentional blindness now, right? So a couple of things I could do, as opposed to just scoping it to this one book, I could scope it to this entire results area, or I can couple it with the functional assertion. So like you said, I already had that one assertion in here that said, make sure that I get one book back. I can add that back in here, right? And so now I have visual, make sure the book is pretty, and then I have a functional assertion too to say, and make sure it's the only one, okay? Very good. All right. Couple of more things I want to show you. One is like dynamic content. So let's say, for example, we had like timestamps on here. For mobile testing, that status bar, that's always going to be different. I have the time, I have my notifications, what apps I have open. So I can use these annotations to say ignore, and I can ignore anything on the screen. So let's pretend this was a mobile app or something. Or let's say I just wanted to ignore this book title. I can just make an annotation on it like this, or I can do it programmatically. Now for the mobile one, I always do that programmatically because I don't want to come for every single test that I run and drawing rectangles like I'm in kindergarten, right? So in my code, I can just say to ignore that region, right? So I can do something like eyes dot, there's fluent checks as well, so I can do eyes dot check. Say, go ahead and check the window, but I want you to ignore, let's say the thing is called status bar or something like that. So I can say ignore the status bar, or sometimes people have ads on their page. They don't want to verify the ads. You don't know what that's going to be, so you can say, okay, do the window, but ignore certain parts. So this is my preferred method, but again, you could do it with the rectangle if you don't want to go inside the code to do it. All right? Another thing, what if you had dynamic content on your page? So I used to work for Twitter, and we would verify the tweets, but you don't know what the tweet is going to say, but I know structurally it should look okay. So I'm going to do another test here. Let's say test dynamic content. And we're not going to do any search and anything. Let's just say validate the window, right? All right, so I'm going to run this. Now, when I use this dynamic part, I haven't put it in yet, but I'm going to show you. It's using AI in a different way to determine like a pattern in the page, right? So I'll tell you more about that in a moment. Let's switch this up. So here are the products. These are all the books listed here. I have my baseline because I just ran it one time. I am going to switch the order of 2 of the books, right? Now, if I run this now, of course, this is going to fail because the books have changed. I can add one more line here that says set match level. The match levels are the algorithms that's used for the comparison. So the match level that I am using by default is strict. That's the one we've been using. There's also exact, which does pixel to pixel. Will you ever use that one? No, we don't like pixel to pixel. There's also content. So if the colors on your application are dynamic, you can say just verify the content, don't worry about colors, right? So this is great for customizable like profiles and stuff like this. And then this one is the last one called layout. Now, let me run this one. Layout is for dynamic content. So we're going to run this again. And even though the order of the books have changed, what AI is doing is finding a pattern on this page. So I imagine it's something like, okay, you have these books are this much width apart. Oh no. These books are this much width apart. And then, let's see what's wrong here. Yeah. All right. So these books are this much width apart and this much distance, and it's looking for things like, oh, it has some big white title followed by some other white title and some price or whatever like this, right? So technically, this should have passed. So this is wrong, and I'm going to bring this back to the office. Y'all already know. But what this should have done is passed, even though this book right here is the first one and it's the second one, right? So let me try again because I don't want y'all to say Angie messed up her demo. Let me do another one just to show y'all, child. All right. How much time I'm looking at? All right. Okay. So y'all go ahead and pray to the ancestors. All right, that passed. All right. So y'all just forget that other one I saw. I'm going to take that back. All right. So, okay, this is passed. And we can see that even... No, it's the same. Okay, don't worry about it. Y'all get the gist, right? So, I did change. I changed other books, right? Oh, okay, here we go. So this cucumber book on the second row, this one was in the second position in this one, but we changed it to the third position or whatever. So this has still passed because we were saying just worry about the layout. If I were to do, I can do previews too. So I can say, show me what this would have looked like if I did strict, and then notice here, it caught this. Oh, it even caught that one that time. Interesting. Okay, so you see that could work with layout. Like I said, we use that at Twitter. There's some news sites where, their content is going to be dynamic every time the page loads just about because they're constantly putting news stories. So that's great for them. Pros and cons of this approach is not looking at the data at all. It's looking at the pattern of the structure of the page. So if anything else was wrong here, like maybe the authors were wrong or anything like that, it's not going to catch it. It's very flexible. That's the pro. I only use this one for things like smoke testing, or if I just want to make sure my UI looks okay, but then I'm going to do some more testing like at the API or the unit test level. That's when I use this one. So I don't use this much. This is not an end-all, be-all solution, all right? Okay. The final thing I want to show you, cross-platform testing. So if you do any cross-platform testing, you already know this is not fun to do. So Admin Tools will allow you to do this. What I hate most about platform testing is that the return on investment is so low, right? Because most of the bugs that we see across different viewports and stuff are visual bugs, right? It's because The size has changed. That's when things start bleeding off the edge of the screen and stuff like that. So you can use visual testing to say, look, let me just write my test one time. I'm not writing it for all of these different configurations. I'm writing it one time. Let me give you all the environments I want to run on. So I want to run Chrome, desktop, Chrome, big view. I want to run IE, Firefox, and Safari. I want to run IE 10 and 11. I want to run those in landscape and portrait. I want to run Android. So I can just give a list, and what this is going to do is run the test one time. When you call eyes and say check the window, it's going to grab the state of your application, meaning the DOM, the CSS, the JavaScript, all of that jazz, and blast it across all of these other environments. I don't have to manage a device form. It's going to make sure that it looks right on all of those. So here's an example where I specified these configurations, and it basically just ran these. And it runs in parallel, and it doesn't have to execute all the steps, which makes it very fast. Developers have written blog posts, oh, I ran 100 UI tests across all of these configurations in 20 seconds, right? Powerful stuff. So if you need to do cross-platform testing, this is really good. All right. I think that's my time. Thank you all so much.